Okay, this is Mr. Glenn of ACT Prep Chicago. Um, During the last video for the reading, um, part two of the reading for online digital practice test one, which is the same as PDF one. Um, if you've seen my other videos, I showed you how to access it. If you go to the reading part one, I go through that at the beginning of the video. So I pick up where I left off. So I go to practice test one. Um, And we did the first two passages up to 18. So now we do passage three. All right, passage A is from the book Foundation, B-Boys, B-Girls, and Hip Hop Culture in New York. And I always read the title because it gives you background. And passage B is from the Tanning of America, How Hip Hop Created a Culture That Rewrote the Rules of the New Economy by Stephen Stout and Mem Eschler Rivas. So both of these passages are about hip hop. Um, one about but this is a split passage too, so that's one thing to notice about this one. All right, it says passage A is by Joseph G. Schloss. The term b-boying refers to breakdancing. They give you some background too. In the first sense of the term, hip hop refers collectively to a group of related art forms in different media, visual sound movement that were practiced in Afro-Caribbean, African American, and Latino neighborhoods. In New York City in the 1970s, the term, when used in this sense, also refers to the events at which these forms were practiced. So, in the first sense of the term, hip hop refers collectively to, I always like to get like the first sentence to make sure I get what they're saying, to a group of related art forms. So a lot of Bollywood, different forms, visual sound movement. So it could be dancing, it could be the music, it could be graffiti. I think graffiti would be a visual that practice in these different cultures, neighborhoods. The term, when used in this sense, also refers to the events at which these forms of practice, the parties, the people who practice them, their shared aesthetic sensibility, and contemporary activities that maintain these traditions. Perhaps the most important aspect of this variety of hip hop is that it is unmediated in the sense that most of the practices associated with it are both taught and performed in the context of face-to-face interactions between human beings. To some degree, this constitutes an intentional rejection of the mass media by its practitioners, but to a great extent, it is just the natural result of the practices themselves. Activities like b-boying and graffiti writing are simply not well suited to the mass media, although in both cases, brief attempts were made to bring these forms of expression into mainstream context. B-boying in a series of low-budget break-exploitation movies in the early 80s, they call it like Breaking. I remember Breaking, that was a really, and graffiti as part of a short-lived gallery trend around the same time. Neither developed substantially in those environments. This, it has been suggested, was not so much because the forms lacked appeal, but because on an economic level, b-boying was an advertisement with no product. This reality is reflected in the phrase that is often used to refer to this branch of hip hop culture, which suggests something that is lived rather than bought and sold. The second sense of the term hip hop refers to a form of popular music that developed or was developed out of hip hop culture. This hip hop, also known as rap music, resulted from the interaction between hip hop culture and the pre-existing music industry. As we would expect, this hip hop features elements of both sensibilities. My students are often surprised when I point out that even when hip hop lyrics seem to reject every aspect of mainstream culture and morality, the one thing they almost never reject is a strict 16-bar verse structure derived from the 10 Pin Alley pop music. But this should not be surprising. This hip hop, in contrast to hip hop culture, is deeply intertwined with the mass media and its needs, largely because it does have a product, records, CDs, MP3s, and ringtones. All right. So then you start to answer questions, even though the second passage, you can answer questions about the first passage because it says according to passage A, right? So according to passage A, one reason elements of hip hop culture such as b-boying are rarely represented in mass media is that these forms, I remember them said it, they didn't have a product that can be sold. I remember that. I read that. That was in here, which suggests that it's lived rather than bought and sold. So it says what? It has been suggested with not some words as this. Activity, although in both cases, brief attempts were made to bring forms of expression in mainstream context, neither developed substantially. And the reason why is because forms lacked appeal. It wasn't that they lacked appeal, but because on the economic level, b-boying was advertised with no product, right? Okay. As is used in the passage, the highlighted word sensibilities most nearly means, as we respect, this hip hop features elements of both sensibilities. I was thinking about that when I was reading it. I didn't get that. The second sense of the term hip hop refers to a form of popular music that developed or was developed out of hip hop culture. This hip hop, also known as rap music, resulted from interaction between hip hop culture and the persistent music industry. Okay, those are sensibilities. I respect this hip hop features elements of both sensibilities. So both sensibilities would be hip hop culture and pre-existing music industry, which would be both perspectives. Yeah, right. They feature elements of both. This hip hop features elements of both hip hop culture and the pre-existing music industry. Okay. Based on past data, which statement best captures the relationship between Tin Pan Alley pop music and rap music? Rap artists is rejected. And no, they didn't say that. So it's not supposed to be. I could use my lemonade if I want. They didn't. I know they didn't say that. Rap artists have been aware of Tin Pan Alley, but not influenced by it. That's not true. They said they mimicked it. Same time as rap influenced many rap artists. I would say yes, because they said that the Tin Pan Alley pop, they followed that. Hip hop follows that structure. They said right here. The one thing they almost never reject in talking about hip hop artists or music or lyricists is the strict 16 bar verse structure derived from Tin Pan Alley pop music. That's they all hip hop artists stick to that strict 16 bar verse structure that came from the Tin Pan Alley pop music. Um, so it has influenced many rap artists because that's the structure they use. They never vary from that structure when they rap. All right, now we're on to passage B, because you see the question about passage B. It wasn't until I was 9 years old, late 1979, that I had even heard the words hip and hop strung together or was able to grasp the notion of what being a rapper actually meant. That was when, faithfully, I heard a record that changed my life and pop culture forever. Like it's yesterday, I can still remember that moment over at my aunt's home in Brooklyn, where it seemed there was always a party underway with relatives and neighbors hanging out, a great spread of food, and new hot music on the record player. Most stereo systems in those days could be adapted for the single two-sided records that were smaller and had the big hole in the middle, as well as the bigger records with the small holes, which were the full albums that had several songs on each side, and the smaller ones, records were the singles. But as the intro plays to what I recognize as Good Times by the group Chick, and I'm drawn into the living room because it's a familiar hit song from the previous summer, I encounter a record on the turntable that defies categorization. Instead of the sweet female lead vocals of that disco smash, I hear something totally different and spot a Baby Blue label on the black vinyl record I've never seen before. Even though it's a 12-inch disc, the size of an album, as I listen to the rhyming words being spoken, singing on and on and on and on, the beat don't stop till the break of dawn, singing on and on. I know that, I know hip hop. The beat don't stop till the break of dawn, singing on and on and on and on, like a hot butter that pop, the pop, dibby, dibble dabble pop, dop the bop, you don't stop, don't dare stop. Now I didn't know all those were uh to to the bang bang boogie, all that stuff. Yeah, I know that a little bit. It hits me that this entire side is one long song, almost 15 minutes long as it turns out, or to be exact, 15 minutes and 36 seconds of pure fun laid over the bass beat from the break of Good Times with the sing-along words easy to remember and repeat. So the song is Good Times. These are the good times. So they put the hip, the hop, the hip, the hop to the hip to the hip to the hop. You don't stop, you rock to the bang bang boogie, bang bang boogie, you rocking to the beat. Doom, 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 doom. I was bringing up all these memories because I know that good times. That's the song. These are the good times. But they use that beat and they did hip. Anyway, it's drawing back all these memories. I like this passage. Doesn't matter though when you take the test. The song works easily beat from the break of good times with the sing-along words easy to remember and repeat. The record I discovered is by an unknown group, the Sugar Hill Gang, and it's called Rapper's Delight. From then on, nobody ever has to tell me what rap is. It's whatever words are spoken, chanted, or talk sung, or whatever philosophy, stories, or ideas are exposed by the House Party Master Ceremonies. Okay. What's the following detail? So you can, if you can really visualize what you see how I kind of broke off the story a little bit. When you're doing a test, you don't want to do that. But when you can really get into it and visualize and really understand, you probably will answer your questions better. All right. Which of the following details is the author of Passage B highlight as one that caused rappers to like to stand out as different compared to other songs he knew? I think he said, it's it for me, his song, no. Instead of Sweet Female Eagles, I hear something totally different and spotted blah, blah, blah. Like a record I've never seen before, even though it's a 12-inch disc, the size and the album, that is the word spoken. What was the question? What's the following does author Pass B highlight as one that caused rappers like to stand out as different compared to other songs he knew? Uh, no, it wasn't the female's vocals because he was thinking he was going to hear the female vocals of good times, doom, doom. These are instead of the sweet female vocals that was its own good time. So it wasn't that. I think he was talking about the length of the song because the other was on vinyl records too. Um, Almost 15 minutes long, it turns out, or to be exact, 14 minutes to play the songs. The record I discovered is no unknown group, the Sugar Hill Gang. That's different compared to other songs. It wasn't the song's intro. Oh, but as the intro plays to what I recognize as Good Times by the group. The author Pass Beats is the one that calls up Let Stand Out as different. The song's intro, right? Because that's what he heard. But as the song intro plays, that was different. That was different. He didn't say anything about the length of the song being different. He just said it was 15 minutes long. But it was the intro that stood out different. It wasn't the length. And it's on vinyl. He said, I hear something totally different in spite of a baby blue label on the black vinyl record I've never seen before. He'd never seen this. Hmm. Was it the record? But he said, because he says he had never saw the record before. I hear something totally different in spite of a baby blue label on a black vinyl record I've never seen before. Oh, on that record. But he had seen records before, right? Two-sided records. Yeah, he had seen records before. So it wasn't it was on the vinyl record. No, he had seen those before. Okay. That was a tough question. That was 22. Let me just check that one. Yeah, 22 was H. Yeah. That's what I picked, right? I think that's what I picked. Oh, I picked A. I got that one wrong. They said it was the length of the song. But I don't remember him saying the length of the song was made it different. Different compared to the songs he knew. Almost 15 minutes long as it turns out. It hits me that this entire, oh, there it is. As he's listening, oh yeah, he does talk about the size a lot too. For me, so even though it's a 12-inch disc, the size of the album, as I listen to the writing words being spoken, it hits me that this entire side is one long song. The entire, oh, almost 15 minutes long as it turns out to be exact. Oh yeah, yeah, he's kind of saying that that does make it kind of stand out. So okay, I can see that. So length of the song. That's why you check your answers. All right, in the context of passage B, the main point of the highlighted paragraph is that the author was struck by the combination of new and established musical elements in the music he was hearing. I think that's it. Uncomfortable with what he viewed as an unwelcome no. More interested in an unfamiliar album label than in the new no. He was interested in music too. Convinced that the new form of music he was hearing would become more popular than disco. He didn't say that. Could be, but he never said that it would be more popular than disco. He never made a comparison of hip hop to disco. Based on passage B, it can reasonably be inferred that the author views his first exposure to rap music as memorable, ultimately no, significant for a child, but no, a transformative experience. Yes, he thought that was wow. Because at the end, he said, from then on, nobody ever has to tell me what rap is. It's whatever words are spoken to in a song. It's like, um, and something totally different in spite of label. Yeah, it's just like a transformative experience the way he described it. I could check that one too, just in case. 24. Yeah, H. Mhm. Compared to passage A, passage B focuses a more on early hip hop intellect, no. Attempts to move, no. The mass meaning, no. The author's personal experience, yes. B is a personal experience. A is just like a history hip hop kind of. Well, not history hip hop, but it's not a personal experience, I don't think. Um, he just talked about hip hop music overall. I mean, it looked like he included some of this. I don't know if he included, I can't remember. Which of the following elements of passage B is not included past A story involving a particular rap song. Right. I don't think it was a story involving a particular rap song in passage A. We just talked about hip hop overall. I'm just skimming just to make sure. Graffiti, economy, hip hop, what it means. Yeah. But B had a story with a particular song. The authors of both passages would most likely agree with the idea that early rap music represented artists' rejection of the music industry. No, and it was like some parts of it, but representing significant development in American popular culture. That could be true. It was more popular than today's rap. I mean, they didn't say that. They didn't say it was more popular, was slow to find an audience. Neither said that either. Representing significant development in American popular culture. I think both would say that because they both were, yeah, kind of pro hip hop and stuff. All right, last passage. The passage is from the article, this passage from The Rise and Fall of the Living Fossil. The term living fossil refers to creatures that had emerged long ago and seem to have stopped evolving. Like all living fossils, crocodiles were thought to have emerged in the distant past and then stayed largely unchanged. The standard theory held that the crocodilian species we know today originated in Africa during the Cretaceous, when the seven continents were much closer together. Like all living fossil crocodiles were thought to have emerged in the distant past. I always like to get that living fossil first creatures that emerged long ago. If I were reading the past, I probably would keep going. But since we don't answer explanations, I really want to understand it. Living fossil that emerged. I guess so. I'm having this thing right now where and I'm telling you, so sometimes your eyes are passing over the word, but you're not really comprehending. So that happens to us all, right? So in that case, when that happens, I start whisper reading, even though I was whisper reading, but that usually helps me when I'm on a test. You gotta reset though. Get your focus back. All right, the term living fossil. Wait, what is the passage? The rise and fall of the living fossil. The term living fossil refers to creatures that had emerged long ago and seem to have stopped evolving. Like all living fossils, crocodiles were thought to have emerged in the distant past and then stayed largely unchanged. Standard theory held that the crocodilian species we know today originated in Africa during the um, Cretaceous, when the seven continents were much closer together. As the continents drifted apart, the crocodiles went with them, explaining how they ended up in a band of tropics circling the globe. If that were true, then modern crocodilian species should be very different from one another at the level of genes and molecules, because there would have been more than enough time for substantial mutations to accumulate. By the 1990s, however, molecular analysis revealed that immune system molecules conserved across living crocodilian species were remarkably similar. So they're saying that if crocodiles spread out, they would expect them to be differences in their molecular structure based on adaptations to different environments and mutations, but they didn't find that, especially with the immune system, right? Intrigued by this puzzle, a postdoctoral research fellow at the University of Washington named Jamie Oakes began collecting DNA samples from all 23 living crocodilian species, comparing sections of the genome where mutations were most likely to have appeared. Oakes did not find nearly as many differences between the modern crocodile genomes as one would expect, had those species diverged all the way back in the Cretaceous. He concluded that modern crocodilian species split from their last common ancestor between the 8 and 13 million years ago. I guess it's more recent than the Cretaceous period. Not long before ancient homininids split from their last common ancestor with chimpanzees. The living fossil theory of crocodiles had overestimated their evolutionary age by about a factor of 10. Okay. Oakes also noticed something odd about the DNA samples he had acquired from the iconic Nile crocodiles. Nile crocodile also noticed something odd about the DNA samples he had acquired from the iconic Nile crocodiles. Okay. They did not match up with each other. In fact, the variation between them was great enough to suggest that he was looking at two distinct species. If so, then not only were modern crocodiles much too young to be living fossils, but they had also continued to speciate after diverging from the basal ancestors, something living fossils are not supposed to do. On its own, Oak's study was intriguing, but not enough to convince the larger scientific community to cleave the Nile crocodile into two species. Unbeknownst to him, however, a separate team of scientists was preparing to corroborate his results. In early 2000, on the excursion to Chad, the wildlife conservationist Michael Clemens encountered some odd little crocodiles in a desert oasis. They were so docile that he and his companions could swim beside them without concern. He took a tissue sample from one that had recently perished and sent it to the American Museum of Natural History, where Yvonne Hekela, an assistant professor at Fordham University studying crocodile diversity, sequenced his genome. When she compared the docile croc's DNA to the other Nile crocs, she noticed some rather striking differences. Could these same crocs be an entirely different species? Docile crocodiles you could swim in. Imagine that. That's not the crocodiles we encounter or we see on TV. DNA analysis of 120 African crocodiles, as well as 57 separate samples from museum specimens, including crocodiles mummified in ancient Egypt, confirmed her suspicion. And what was her suspicion? That the crocs be an entirely different species. In a few sections of their respective genomes, all the Mount Manor crocs would have one DNA sequence, and all the typical Nile crocs another. They even had different numbers of chromosomes. That made us very confident that they were actually two different populations and they were not mixing their DNA. The two different species had diverged between 3 to 6 million years ago. Crocodylus niloticus in the east and the smaller, less aggressive Crocodylus crescens in the west. The vast majority of mummified crocodiles were sea suckers, suggesting that ancient Egyptians had recognized the difference. Oh, because they were more docile, less aggressive, so they could actually live with them. Together, Hekala, Oakes, and other scientists helped redraw the map of how crocodilians evolved in space and time and conclusively removed them from the category of living fossils because they were still, I guess, evolving. In the context, because they say living fossils are things that have stopped evolving, right? To live as refers to creatures that had emerged long ago and seem to have stopped evolving. Yeah. In the context of the passage, how does the analysis of crocodilian immune system molecules relate to the theory of crocodilian evolution? It challenged it. No, the analysis just living thought theory is no. Analysis supports the living fossil theory in some ways, and the analysis does not support living fossil theory. Right, because they said they looked at the immune systems, right? Because the living fossil theory was said that they had stopped evolving, meaning that and there was these species were same from the same. Oh no, they should be different. Living fossils is that what? Like all living fossils are thought to have emerged in distant past and stay largely unchanged. Yeah, the analysis did not support living because they said, however, the analysis revealed that the immune system molecules conserved across living crocodile species were remarkably similar in structure and behavior. So even though they had spread out, they were similar, which means that they were still evolving. Okay. Yeah, I think that's the, what was that, 28? Let's check it. Let's check that. J, yeah, 20, J and D are the same. All right, which of the following statements best summarizes Oak's analysis of Nile crocodile's DNA as it is presented in the highlighted paragraph? Odd about the DNA samples he had acquired, they did not match with each other. Two different species. If so, they were too young to be living fossils. Continued to speciate after diverging. Okay. This is just that now crocodiles are older than, no, it's younger. I would say younger. It suggests that different species of crocodiles do not share a basal ancestor, which the scientific community has confirmed. It suggests that analysis was hastily done. Let's summarize Oakes' analysis. Which of the following statements best summarize Oakes' analysis? No, they didn't say it was hastily done. It suggests the DNA came from two species which do not support the living. Right. That's all it's saying. DNA came from two different species which did not support the living fossils theory, right? The main purpose of the highlight paragraph is to DNA analysis of 123 African crocodiles, as well as 57 separate samples, confirmed her suspicion. In a few sections of the perspective genomes, all the mild-mannered crocs would have one DNA sequence, and all the typical non-crocs another. They had different numbers of chromosomes that made us very confident they were actually two different populations that were not mixing their DNA. The two different species had diverged between 3 to 6 million years ago. The vast majority of modern organisms, okay. Describe the DNA. It described the DNA labs that confirmed were two different species. That's exactly what it did. Provide information on the mummification. No. Explain how Hakala revolutionized DNA analysis by comparing the DNA. No, they weren't revolutionizing DNA analysis. That's not what they talked about. Introduce the behavior differences between, no, that wasn't what the purpose was. The purpose of that paragraph was to describe the DNA labs that confirmed that these was two different species. According to the passage, molecular analysis revealed that immune system molecules from living crocodile species were similar in, I think they said structure and behavior. When they talk about it, revealed that immune system molecules conserved across living crocodiles were remarkably similar in structure and behavior. Right? I remember that, yeah. In the context of the passage, the highlight statement mainly serves to, they were so docile that he and his companions could swim beside them without concern. Indicate the claimant and companions believed that the crocodiles were diseased. No. establish the tameness of the crocodiles in the Dale Oasis, maybe. Suggests that Clemens and his companions suspected they were swimming with, but that's not what it served to do. It was really talking about how tame they were. No, it wasn't about fully, it was just really how tame they were. They weren't trying to really mess with the people. Crocodile Nicoletus, but that's the different, that's not the right crocodile, that's the wrong one. Because they were swimming with the Sukas, which was the what, the less aggressive one. The Nicoletus in the east is the more aggressive one. So that'd be the wrong one. According to the passage, after Clemens sent a tissue sample of a perished crocodile to Hekala, Hekala then estimated the crocodile's age, studied the immune system, sequenced the crocodile genome, identified mutations. What did he do specifically? Uh, we're talking about Clemens sent a tissue to Hekala. Sequenced its genome, right? Where Ivan Hekala sequenced its genome. In the context of the passage, the detail that seed intelligence seeds have different numbers of chromosomes provides support for the claim that the two species were not mixing their DNA. They said that verbatim. Together, other scientists helped redraw the map. What did they say? There it is. That they were what? It made us confident they were actually two different populations and they were not mixing their DNA. Yeah. These two crocodiles. Mhm. According to the passage, crocodile intelligences diverged between, they said 3 to 6 million years ago. I remember reading that. Sometimes you just remember reading stuff. Yeah, the two different species had diverged between 3 to 6 million years ago. Based on the passage, the phrase redraw the map is most likely meant to be read. Yeah, other science helped redraw the map of how crocodiles evolved. Definitely figuratively because they wouldn't actually draw a map. Uh, they're just saying, read, tell a story. Scientists invented the narrative, right, of the natural history of crocodiles. Scientists believe their findings would have broader implications. No, let's definitely see. Okay. Um, we're not going to end the test because they're going to just say we got half right, half wrong. But I will say this. Actually, we will end the test, but this is only half of it. So when you end the test, if you want to review your mistakes, you have to write them down right away because it does not save your data. Even if you log in to your ACT account, it won't save the data. So, right, we only did 18 questions, right? So it tells you this now. Let's say you took the whole thing together when you take the digital. You have to, this page here, you got to write down the ones you missed because it doesn't save the data, right? It won't save the data. So like, let's say you miss randomly questions, you have to write them down. And then once you finish writing them down, what you do is you'll go back and you'll open up the untimed version to kind of what? To redo the ones you missed, right? To see if you can understand why you made your mistakes. But again, you got to write this down, somehow notate it because it won't be made available to you on the like in your even if you log in, they don't save the data from these online practice tests unless it's something recently they changed. Okay, hopefully that helps you. That was it for the review videos and best wishes to you in your test prep and when you take the test. And Hopefully this was helpful.